Hi, welcome to the Three Times Podcast. Today's guest is Ovingham singer-songwriter Sam Shields, a familiar face in Northumberland, performing solo with his guitar or with his band The Regiment. In this episode, Sam talks about his distinctive British take on Americana, the importance of authenticity, managing social media, and the joy, or otherwise, of hearing your own voice. Sam plays 3 songs specially for the podcast: Wasting My Time, Mother Nature, and Penny's Daughter. Some of Sam's music is available on Spotify, YouTube and Apple Music, but the best way to hear him is to catch one of his many gigs. You can find out about these through his Facebook page. Just search for Sam Shields.
I tried everything, every trick in the book, but you never did notice, babe. You did not even look. So I've got to wonder what it is you want when you call up out of the blue. We both know how I tried to get through to you.
Sam Shields, thank you for coming on Three Times Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Can you tell me how long you've been doing this?
Probably sort of seriously for about 10 years. I'd say. I played on my own. I played in bands in school and stuff. I'm 26 now. So yeah, for seriously, like, you're getting around playing gigs and writing songs about 10 years probably, but it's always playing guitar has been a part of.
All right.
Yeah,
when did you pick up your first guitar?
When I was in first school, my mother got me a couple of lessons and I hated it, and then it went away until like I saw like my friends in bands. I was like, I want to do that, you know. When I was about 13, 14, so then I sort of taught myself really from there, and then played in a few bands, and then sort of nobody was into the music out, the sort of, as they said, old man music that I was into. Everyone was like into indie and stuff, so I've gone on a rabbit hole already, haven't I?
No, that's grand. That's grand. So what kind of music was old man music?
Not, of course, my words. It was a big eye-opening thing for me was when me granddad played me Johnny Cash's False in Prison album.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's like, I know he has a band in that recording, but I was like, wow, that's just like with the music, everybody in my contemporaries into it was all like Oasis and be like Arctic Monkeys, people like that. It was like the band siege mentality, but Johnny Cash was just a guy. I know he had like the sound of the band and everything, but I was like, wow, that's different. That's like saying something more sort of universal. And even though he's like an American singing in a prison, I was like, I get that, you know. And from Johnny Cash into like Bob Dylan, some of Springsteen stuff, people like John Prine.
So American musicians by and large.
So it's like folk and country origins. There's a lot of English people follow that tradition, of course. Like Billy Bragg's the name that comes to mind, but you've got like Richard Thompson. I know Cohen's Canadian, but like, yeah, people like that. The singer-songwriter thing, you know.
So you were the only person you knew who liked this kind of music?
Well, not like that. Not the only person I knew, but it was just like a big thing as well was like, I shouldn't say I don't like my own voice. That's not a very good advert. It was quite like difficult for me to sing rock music or whatever that would be. It was certainly difficult to listen to me singing that. I was kicked out of bands consistently, you know, and then sort of went to do my own thing. I'm not saying that the people I listen to like aren't good singers, because of course they are, but it's like they had like, you know who they are when they're singing, you know, like Tom Waits. So yeah.
But lots of singers say that they don't enjoy the sound of their own voice when they hear it. So it's an odd thing, isn't it? Because everybody else takes the sound of your voice for granted, but when you hear it yourself, it doesn't sound the same as you hear it in your head.
Yeah.
Or it's the same, I imagine, as you think it sounds when you're singing, because you kind of adapt your voice.
Yeah, that's certainly true for talking. I heard someone say once, it was like on a documentary, it said that, like what you just said, like no singer likes the sound of their own voice, apart from Rod Stewart. Which I thought was excellent.
It is a tricky one, because I don't think singers sing so that they sound like themselves. I think they sing to project something or to tell people something, but they're not doing it primarily so that other people hear the sound of their voice.
Yeah, it's an interesting way of looking at it.
We'd watch the tide flood toward the shore. Monday, our arms were open wide by Tuesday you'd locked the door. Now I don't think I'll ever know the length of the fool you took me for we both know it doesn't matter anymore. I did not mean to cause you pain when I spoke out of turn, but for everything I thought I knew, there was so much more to learn. And if this I don't have any more to say, but let me give you one more line. For we both know I was only wasting my time.
I was when I seen my friend play last night actually, and I was saying about like afterwards, like I watched what she did, and she's so honest on stage. Friend Lauren. Whereas I feel like I kind of, to go on your point you've just made, I feel like I'm not putting on a mask, but it's like an escape.
Yeah.
You become something different.
You're not the same person on stage as you are sitting
whereas I'm kind of, I'm not going to say I'm envious, because I like that's almost like a different art form what she's doing. It's so like she's so honest with like the stuff she was saying between the songs was like there was just no like front, and I mean that she was honest about what the songs were about, and how she was like nervous. It was one of the first times she's done it on her own, and it was like, wow, that's a completely different thing. Whereas you're probably right, it is like is escapism the right word, or is it like you're trying to become something, you convey something different than you can do without being on stage, I guess, and that sounds really pretentious.
No, not at all. I think the way a singer's voice sounds is absolutely key to whether you engage with the audience, because anybody can sing a song, but you hear somebody who cares about singing a song, and you instantly notice the difference. You kind of have a more immediate relationship with that person.
Yeah, I think so. Some people can care too much.
Yeah.
So, and it becomes too passionate, and it's like, just calm down. But yeah, I think sort of things like diction and that are taken for granted. You know, like the way I pronounce the words. That's my big gripe. Is like when I hear singers that don't pronounce the words. It's like, why are we here? You know, like if we can't hear it, like if we're just making noises. That's I don't know.
I would call that approach to singing a bit traditional, in that you like the lyrics to be heard and understood.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I think the tune like catches you. I think the melody or the music is what grabs somebody's attention. Mm-hmm. But for me, just my own experience listening to music, the lyrics are it's what'll make you come back a second or third time and go, oh wow, that is a great song. Like Springsteen's Thunder Road. Mm-hmm. You hear that harmonica at the end, that great riff at the end, and it's like, wow, that's anthemic. And then you go, wait a minute, what he's saying there is unbelievable. You know, but you don't get that the first time.
Well, I noticed this morning when I was listening to your stuff that you've recorded one of Justin Townes Earle's songs, and I'm a big fan of his.
Really?
Absolutely, I've got all his albums.
Oh wow!
So it was a delight to see.
Just talk about Justin Townes Earle for an hour.
Yeah, well, he's a great songwriter, isn't he?
Yeah.
And I remember listening to an interview with him, in which somebody asked him about his songwriting process, and they said, well, how long does it take you to write a song? He said, 6 months.
Yeah, he's quite.
6 months.
He's on that train of
Took a great deal of thought about what went into his lyrics, and went over and over and over.
Yeah, I've heard him say that in sort of interviews and things, the care that went into it, which I think is the kind of, there's like two approaches. There's like that approach, which is like, I think Leonard Cohen is also like, apparently talking like, he wrote 80 verses for Hallelujah and stuff, and then you've got like Bob Dylan and Neil Young who would write like Heart of Gold in the back of a taxi or something. I don't know if that's true about Heart of Gold, but like that's first draft done, next song. I suppose if you're as good as Dylan or Neil Young, you can get away with that. But yeah, like when you listen to Townes Earle stuff, it's so concise. It's not as wordy as some of the other people, but it's just so it's smart, isn't it? It's like you wouldn't think, not a good thing to say, but you wouldn't think that length of time went into it. It sounds so natural and
that's right. Yeah, and straightforward and plain.
Yeah,
and unadorned. I think, which to me is the appeal of it.
Yeah, I think he's probably like filtered it down to its purest, like the purest emotion or point of the song, point of the thing he's trying to convey. Like.
So, what's your songwriting process?
It does vary from like song to song, like sort of the task at hand. But as a general rule of thumb, if I get a title or like a metaphor that intrigues me, I know I'm onto something. because I think it needs to cause. I say needs to. There's no right or wrong way with music, of course, but if it intrigues me, I can put enough thought and effort into it, and I know I will. I believe I can get it to intrigue. It doesn't. There's no subject matter that I'll stick with, but that light bulb's got to come up with like a title or a metaphor, and it's usually something that I'll hear somebody else say. I'm not one of these that goes and sits and gets all deep and internal. Maybe later I'll do that, but like it's like I've got a song called Penny's Daughter, which was like I'd actually heard my grandmother say. She went, Penny's daughter bought Penny's mother's house. I was like, wow, that's incredible.
Penny's daughter bought Penny's mother's house, and you know that's where she's living now. The days of searching seemed so far behind. By all accounts she's settled down. Well, Penny's daughter, she works 9 to 5. She's got 2 cats and a social life.
First of all, what a genius opening line from your grandmother, because there's no word you can take out of that. There's no like fat on that meat, you know, you can't cut it down any further. It just says so much with so little about like the way that you Penny's daughter bought Penny's mother's house. It's like, wow, you're going to become, you're destined to become your parents and your parents' parents, and just the things that get passed down. And that's kind of that's a really great like metaphor for that family thing. So yeah, usually a title.
Yeah, so the insight comes from spotting that concept behind something that's apparently simple, but actually
I think so. I think if you can try and get in the door where, not that nobody's ever been, because I'm sure loads of people have been, but like try to say something that it isn't obvious but sort of is universal. I think it's funny you mentioned Tristan Hodsdale, because a lot of his philosophies are sticking in my head now. His sort of philosophies on songwriting, I remember hearing him say like songs shouldn't be diary entries, which I just thought was a great line. I mean, maybe if you've got a really interesting life, I'd want to hear your diary entries, but a lot of the people who turn up and play songs, no. Things like you would say, like take the AirPods out and like listen to the world, because that's where the songs come from. And it's like, yeah, it's true. Like, it's good. I usually have to hear it from somebody else, like, and then that'll set off a light.
Penny's daughter bought Penny's mother's house. By all accounts she's settled down.
And have you got a notebook that you write these ideas down, or a phone you put on your phone?
I put them in my phone.
And how long's the list at the moment?
It's long. Yeah, because some of them you forget what. You go back and look and go, what? What was I thinking? That's terrible. Yeah, there's a lot of that as well when you ask about like songwriting process. There's a lot of like going to bed thinking you've written the next Bohemian Rhapsody. Yeah. And then you wake up and look at it and go, yeah. You can't even make anything out of this, you know.
I tend to wake up about 3 or 4 o'clock with this tune in my head. I think this is an amazing tune. I can't possibly forget this.
Yeah.
Or
and then you forget it.
And I'll forget it. Or if I do remember it and I go through it, I think this is rubbish. This one. But it's odd, isn't it? At night time when there's nothing much going on, you can have some kind of inner vision that sees quality that you can't in more judgmental times in the day.
The night time is
it's special, isn't it? That time for composition.
I don't know. I'm trying to think if that's a thing. Do I write more at night? Possibly, yeah. Like that's when the magic happens.
Yeah. I was listening to Nick Cave on Desert Island Discs the other day.
Right.
And he's one of these writers who goes into his office at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. And
it's like a job for him, isn't it? Yeah.
And he says he sits there and writes.
I mean, obviously Nick Cave's written some of the greatest songs ever. I find that insane. Unless you're going in there with an idea. Like I think the thing is like for me it's like you have to have that initial spark, and then you go to work. at it, and then you don't just it's not just a first draft ever, but like the idea of just going into a room with your own thoughts is like no. Well, I can understand that with Nick Cave because he's like, I don't know, he's quite internal, isn't he, with his songs. The kind of a lot of them are abstract and sort of.
So can you remember your first solo gig?
First solo gig, yeah, it wouldn't be like a gig as you would think of a gig. It would be like, I remember I played at the Goose Fair in Ovingham on my own. That was terrifying because it was like, I'd played in bands and stuff, but it was like on my own. You know, there's nobody to share the blame with. But that was like I remember that. That was about I was 15, I think.
And when did you start playing your own stuff?
I can't remember what was played back then, but I'm pretty sure I would have done one or two of mine then. Not anything I'd be playing now of my own songs. From playing on my own, I was always doing like a spot like that. I'd always be doing at least half, or like 2 or 3 of my own songs. Yeah. It was always important to have my own songs in there rather than just being like. And there's nothing against that, but I never wanted to just be like singing to get people dance. There's a time and a place for that, you know. Yeah. Like a lot of people are like, I want people to sing along. It's like a little bit of that, but maybe not all the time, you know. Yeah.
How do you find getting gigs when you're doing your own stuff? I mean, how did you find? Because now you're quite a well-established name, and people.
I don't know if I am. I'm not. I mean, yeah, it's terrible in January. I'll say that for sure. But I think the more you do, if you go out and do your own stuff or have your own, like, do something a little. I'm not saying I'm certainly no like trailblazer or anything, but I think people thought like, well, I've heard people say things sort of retrospectively. When I was maybe starting out as like a teenager, people would be thinking, no, it was this kid playing all these miserable songs or whatever. And I think as you kind of, if you're going to do something like that, rather than just do the sort of, sing. I'm not going to give an example of a song because that would be like, I don't know, offend somebody who does it or whatever. But like Sweet Caroline or something, if you're going to go and do something like that, but like if you're going to do something slightly, as my friend Johnny says, slightly left of centre, the more you do it and people become used to that, I think you find it easier to get into that sort of, like, certain gap in the market in terms of getting gigs. Yeah. I suppose you got to realise it's not going to be as busy all year round as like if you sing Mustang Sally. I prefer those sort of gigs where the people who are there know what they're going to get. If you just turn up in a rowdy bar and start doing Leonard Cohen songs, it's not going to do very well.
Presumably,
I know because I've tried.
It's a lot easier to get gigs if you're going to do covers, is it? I guess.
Yeah, I think so. For the certain sort of gigs, if you're playing a bar, but I'm looking at like doing like in terms of if you're doing your own stuff, you want trying to get like support slots for touring acts that are coming through, or like trying to do like ticket events. Like you mentioned Ian Brown earlier, he does a great deal locally, putting on events up. But like I've played his thing at Walk Town Hall 2 or 3 years ago now, and I did the Twice Brewed, which I don't think runs as a music night anymore. I did that like pre-pandemic, but then there's Ben, who's got the Vault, places like that. The original stuff.
Do you turn up at open mics every now and then?
Yeah, a lot of it. Like when you mention like the songwriting process, that's a lot of. I think it's only 75% done until you go and try and play it, and then you come back with like notes, like maybe you change the key or something slightly like that. Yeah.
Oh right, that's interesting.
Definitely, yeah.
And is that from your own experience of singing the song, or from the audience's reaction, or maybe both?
A bit of both, yeah. You know, I mean, if it's totally wrong, you'll know yourself. But like, yeah, the audience reaction's good to judge whether the intro catches them or whether it's long enough, whether it goes on too long. I think, because I always think like the solo performer, because you're only armed with a guitar, I always feel more akin to like, I don't know, I hear like comedians do interviews where they say that they'll go try out new material at like their equivalent of open mics, and I relate more to that than like being in a big band. I feel more akin to the, I'm certainly not funny, but like, if that makes sense, it's like a solo performer's like more like a clown than a. Because you've only got your guitar, you've got to come up with something, Yeah. You put a harmonica on or something, but so definitely trying out songs at open mics.
So you don't go to a gig thinking, I've written this great song and I know it's great and nothing's going to change my mind and the audience has got to come round to my way of thinking. You kind of respond to their assessment of it and their, if you like, critique, and then change it.
No, I don't know if that is exactly. I think the more I've done it, the more I'm able to judge what's good and what isn't before it gets to that stage. I think you learn the craft. I suppose like any walk of life, got to be quite stuck in your ways. I think you can't go too much for what the audience, because if then you'll just end up doing
Well, you'll end up doing covers,
Singing
won't you?
Sweet Caroline, won't you? Yeah. You don't want to be too self-indulgent also. I think there's a very fine line between you've got to be true to yourself, but also it's got to be, I say it's got to be, there's no church of this. It's like,
you kind of feel your way forward, don't you, and do what works. And
I'd say so,
yeah.
I certainly know, I think, I'm not one of these that writes like 100 songs, takes them, and whittles them down to 10. I'm like, I'll know when to kill an idea before it becomes, I know I like, that's not good. Stop working on that one. Work on this one,
yeah.
Before it's a song.
But do you ever throw anything away, or do you just keep it just in case it could be tweaked for the future?
I've got things that I've had for a while. We've been recording this song at the minute, and I've had this riff for like nearly 3 years, just sitting there. And I was like, this is a great riff, it's going to be something, but just wait until... And it was about 6 months ago, I was like, I finally cracked it. I was like, okay, I'm onto something here. So it can take that long. Like that Penny's Daughter song I mentioned before, that took a long time to get to, like what I knew it could be, like lyrically.
It's curious, isn't it, how your mind has to come round to a certain way of thinking to accommodate an idea like that, instead of being able to take the idea and run with it from the outset.
Yeah, because it's not, there's no formula, is it? It's quite a daunting thing, like, because it's not something you ever feel you've cracked. Like you sort of think, am I ever going to write a song ever again? If you've gone like a couple of weeks without, like with that one, as I say, it's not something you feel like you've ever totally mastered. But I've heard like Paul McCartney said that in interviews, and if he doesn't feel he's mastered it, then certainly isn't a science to it. Yeah.
So how do you think that your songwriting has evolved since you started performing solo?
Good question. I think in the beginning I was very conscious about my voice, so I made it very, very wordy to try and like make them watch this hand. Like, look at all these lyrics.
Yeah. Don't
Don't listen to the singing. You know, like and just getting as much words as I could that may or may not have made any sense. But they did to a 16-year-old who thought he was like a young Bruce Springsteen or something. But so I think I've maybe gone more melody driven. Slightly since then, whereas I would just kind of cram a load of words in. That's the immediate thing that came to mind.
Where does the melody come from? Do you start with a nice
it's funny you say that.
inspiring chord change, or
All sorts of places really. I find it more difficult to, like, go back to what you're saying with like the process, and as in the title, I think the lyric, somebody told me once that, like, I wouldn't like to pin myself into folk music, but I think the singer-songwriter thing comes from folk music. So, but they said in folk music the lyrics drive the melody. That's what somebody told. I was like, never thought about it that way, but I was like, yeah, they do. It just makes sense where it would go. It's harder to put. I find it, generally speaking, more difficult to like have a melody and then be like, right, I've got to find words that fit this, because then you get stuck and like end up changing something. You're like, no, you need the exact words, and it's harder to fit that sort of exactly in. But sometimes I'll be playing a guitar and play something, and I'm like, that really sounds like a vocal melody. It usually comes from guitar more than.
yeah.
I do think that like a lyric, like the first couple of lines, and then that sort of leads you down a path with how the melody should go. Like if you write words on a page, you know that's either going to be like, you can kind of tell how that's meant to sound. That's the beauty of some acts, isn't it? They'll flip that on its head, like the Smiths. Everything sounds so upbeat, but it's like, when you look at the lyrics, it's quite dark, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, maybe I should try and change that. I'll have a new approach now, Steve, I think.
Where did your love of words come from? Are you a literary person?
I did get quite into English literature in school and everything, but I'm not a huge reader really. In the context of music, it was like I just love the way that like certain songwriters can like paint a picture, and it's almost like they're describing somewhere that you know exists but isn't you haven't necessarily seen with your own eyes. Like when some of them early Springsteen songs, like before he sort of started doing the Born USA stuff, like he's got a song called "It's Hard to Be a Saint in the City." I remember hearing that thinking, wow, that's almost like he's singing about Newcastle. Even though it's from like New Jersey.
Not many saints in Newcastle.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. Yeah, you know, like he says, I had skin like leather and a diamond hard look of a cobra. But then like early Dylan stuff, like to dance beneath the diamond sky with one arm waving free, silhouetted by the sea. It's like, okay, Bob, leave some for the rest of us, you know. Just that, like, that sends me on a journey when I'm listening. I'll never probably write anything like that, but if somebody sat someday and read one of my lines like that, that's my dream, you know. Yeah. Not like money or private jets.
Yeah.
That's what art is, and it's just inspiring them.
I was struck while I was listening to your music that while the style of your songs is consistent with many of the people who you've mentioned, like Justin Townsend and Bruce Springsteen, consistent with their style, you're not tempted to sing about exotic American locations. You sing about English British, I should say. Okay.
Yeah.
You're very much a British writer.
Townsville said, "Sing about what you know." I think, when you mentioned about evolving, I think I maybe lost in that a little bit when I was younger. Okay, I need to sound like I'm from there or whatever, because I'm not going to say it felt like there was nothing happening, but it just, not that I sort of sing about, like, the co-op or anything, but I don't know why I said the co-op, I just walked past the but like, if you're singing about Los Angeles or something, and you're from Ovingham.
Uh-huh.
That being said, I've got a song called Flint, which is about something happened in America, but it's not about that, it's about the sort of corruption. That's me get out of jail free card on that. Yeah, that's me get out of jail free card on that one. Yeah. So everyone's allowed one. Whatever your subject matter is, you've got to find something universal, I think, for the sort of audience to. Again, I've said you don't have to do anything. There's no right or wrong answer. Just cause intrigue, I suppose. I'm glad you said that though, about the English thing, because it's.
Do you look around and you think that there are things around me that I want to write about? Like the way people live? Or
not like that exactly. I don't know. It's not as sort of transactional as that. I'd say maybe it's like, but there are certain people that I've met where I've I wouldn't say I've put them into a song, but there's a lot of characters I know that are there's not many of you around. You're worth that sort of work their way into lines, I suppose. So, but I don't write about people like that. I don't know.
So do you think, for example, you'd be the same writer if you were living in London? Do you think you'd be producing the same kind of material?
As in style of music or subject matter?
As in subject matter, really. Yeah. That's the kind of stuff you write about.
In London.
Or anywhere else than the North East. Do you see yourself as a North East writer is really the question.
Right, okay, I see what you mean. Yeah. I wouldn't like to label it as just specifically being about the North East, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. I've not got any references to the Tyne, I don't think, or anything, or Newcastle United or anything. Yeah. I think music's more universal for me anyway. Yeah. I mean, I like a lot of there's a lot of great especially in the folk tradition around here. There's a lot of great songs about the shipping, trade and everything. But that's just not my I wasn't there, so I don't. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think you can be inward looking towards your community and draw your inspiration from that, or you can be outward looking and talk about more universal topics and ideas.
Yeah, I think I mean I've got family, close friends and things that I wouldn't just write about me mother. It's got to be about my mother, but also whoever's listening to the song. It's got to be about their mother too, if that makes sense. It's not just a list of
something your mother does rather than something about your mother herself.
Yeah, but I always think be specific, but not. And I'm sitting here talking as though I'm some sort of expert, but.
Well, you are an expert.
I'm not an expert.
You're a singer-songwriter who.
No, don't be specific, but don't be too vague as well. Give it detail, but not to the point where somebody can't grab it and make it about their own life. Because otherwise, what's the for me? I would think, what's the point of that?
Yeah.
I think Springsteen said, I don't believe people listen to my music to learn about me. They listen to learn about themselves.
Yeah. I
think that's a great philosophy to have. There's a lot of people that and I don't like to go on too much about. It's easy. I suppose it's easy to be negative, isn't it? in human nature, but there's a lot of people sort of going about this is about this. This is a song about my struggles with this, and it's well, okay, but what's in it for us? Does that make sense?
It does. I think songs are rarely about what people say they're about because they have different meanings to different people. We all find different concepts within a song that we can make our own. I mean, if you're talking about somebody singing about their troubles with alcoholism, then actually, apart from the subject of alcoholism, the content of the song is about anxiety or depression or despair or something. These are wider concepts that people share.
It's you've got to peel it back a bit. Someone's got a song about a drug problem. You can peel that back and make it about any addiction, I suppose. Yeah. You've got to peel it back to its core. What's the root of this? But I've got the song called Flint that we sometimes do live. I've heard about this place in America that was Flint in Michigan. There was a water crisis there. I had this song for a little bit where it was just sort of telling the story of what happened. But I was and then I had this last verse about how the injustice went all the way to the top. The president actually came and President Obama at the time came and like pretended to drink the water that was contaminated, and if you zoom in on the video you can see. I sort of managed to get that in the song. I was like, without that last bit where it becomes like, okay, the whole thing's corrupt. You're just telling facts. You've got to, as you say, pull it back to what's the root cause of anything.
Yeah.
What are you actually trying to say?
Have you ever done anything to consciously to develop your songwriting or music playing technique? Have you been on courses?
Yeah, I've got my heart broken many times, and that makes writing. I wouldn't. That was.
Well, that's true. It's all, everything's grist and mill, isn't it? Especially stuff like that.
Yeah, that was a bad joke. That's a good question. Like a practical doing a course or something.
Yeah. Or have a book. I mean, over there, and you can see behind the speaker there, I've got several songwriting books that I turn to every now and then in despair, thinking I must be able to do something.
I've read more sort of poetry. I got a friend who's a poet, and sort of trying to like get in his head about what he puts in, because I don't know. I'd like to know more about that, because I don't think of it as like as much of a science as I think he does. You know, like with like people who just have the words are very. There's like a meter to it and everything. It's got to work literally and like literally and like sort of almost mathematically too. There's like a science to that. So trying to get into his head about that, and also playing with other musicians is a good thing musically in terms of developing me writing. You know, like because they'll come up with chords that are just wow, okay. And I think I've become better at like picking out a harmony with a chord, like throwing in like major sevens and things. You know. Yeah, Callum on he's got a lot of major sevens. Yeah, really good.
Are you co-composed with Callum or anybody else?
No, with Callum, no. We've played a lot. Like we've played on each other's songs. Callum's a great harmonica player. I can play guitar on some of his, and sometimes sing some with him, but we've not written anything. I've jammed a couple of times with Ben at the Vault, which has been quite insightful. Although I wouldn't want to say this, but you're probably right in terms of the musical thing being like of the more American singer-songwriter tradition, even though, which does make me feel a little bit fraudulent slightly, but
my point is that's the assumption of especially a white man standing up playing an acoustic guitar and singing, but the point was that your subject matter is not at all it's completely different. It's right. English, British.
Okay, you took that point wrong. Yeah, but then like Ben comes from the sort of very much English sort of arty rock thing, right, where there's a lot of like chords and he's always got great rhythm and everything, and that's his. We put our heads together a couple of times and embellished some of the tunes, which has been really insightful. I play in a band as well, I play like with like my friend Lauren who I went to see last night. She plays piano and sings with me when I do gigs, and my friend Liam plays bass, so we like go out as a trio, and having them there, it gives me something else to think about in terms of writing songs. It's like, or you're like putting the guitar down for certain songs and just singing with a piano and the bass. It's like, I don't know, delivering it differently. I know that's not about, I know you asked about songwriting, but like, that's in my head more now, in terms of like, if I'm trying to like arrange something, I'm thinking, right, maybe this one could be, I was mentioning that when I had a riff for a while, I was thinking maybe I'll put the guitar down for that and just sing it. Sometimes less is more. If you just hear the piano on that, it's nice. Yeah. She's a better player than I am.
Well, you mentioned playing in a trio there. What are the practicalities from the point of view of gigging, of being in a small band like that and doing it solo?
Yeah, I think it, in terms of like getting in somewhere, I think logically it's easy. If you're in a small place, it's easy to just turn up with your guitar and do it. Because we don't have a drummer, we do it. There's a couple of songs where maybe a drummer would like really give it a good kick, but I think a lot of the free rhythm of it is like this. It's sometimes better to have space. Yeah. But that's not what you're asking. Turning up without a drummer is, I think, practically quite similar to just turning up on your own. It's no hassle or anything, but I think it just leaves, it gives more colour to what I do, certainly, as it would with anybody. You know, if anybody had Lauren and Liam play with them, you know, I'm very lucky that they do it. I'd like to think I can turn up on my own with a guitar and do it. There's only so much white man with acoustic guitar that any one sane person can take. So like, after about 50 minutes, I think, unless you're really, I think that's after about 50 minutes, you know.
Yeah, that's what those gigs are, though, isn't it? About an hour.
Yeah, exactly. I think you can go on a bit longer when you've got more colour going on. Yeah. As I say though, I do think as a performer, I've always thought as a solo act, you're more like in line with with what a comedian's doing. Yeah. Even though like what they're doing is incredible because they don't have an instrument, of course, but because you don't have the full band, you just kind of, it's the voice. That's why when you can't hear people's words and you got to listen to them for an hour, it's like, well, what are we doing here, you know?
Another thing that struck me that when I've been looking at your work is that you're not really very active on social media, are you, by your modern standards?
Yeah, that's and I've gone through phases of being really active. That is also, believe it or not, that's not just laziness. There is method to the supposed madness that you've pointed out there. I know people tell me otherwise. They say I shouldn't say this or whatever, but I've got friends who post too much, and I'll say this here because I would say to them too. It's like there's too much. It's like less is more sometimes. I know maybe I've taken that too far by, because you've had to go back to 2022 for a video, which is quite concerning. but we're recording at the minute, so I'm just kind of waiting till that's done. Then we're really going to push the EP or album, whatever it turns out to be. I think people have got to find you, not organically. That's the wrong word. Because I suppose they're not going to find you. But I just think if you're pushing and pushing and pushing, for me, if I see that, my immediate reaction is I'm already against this. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because it's being pushed at me. If I find something, I'm more inclined to sort of want to like it. Maybe that's just me being awkward. Like if someone tells me to like something, I sort of reject it. But I do think if I don't know. I think if people push too much, people have like one song and then like you hear that for like a year, and it's like. You know. Yeah,
it's
do something else.
I think it's a fraught issue these days because social media have changed in the past couple of years. They started out as a way to connect with people. So for artists, that was a very good way to reach their audience directly. Yeah. But then I read recently that the social media platforms are increasingly seeing themselves as a means of entertainment. So that's why they keep pushing stuff at you. And so the messages that you want to get to your followers or audience just get submerged in this overwhelming tide of other stuff that the platform thinks that you're interested in.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's an exciting thing, social media, because you can really, I suppose, you can catch a wave and become like overnight. In the same way that probably would have happened like on the like Elvis on the radio and the Ed Sullivan thing, how like everybody was on that thing, like watching that one thing. So, but I was thinking between those two, that phenomenon never sort of happened again, but it might. You know, like with the internet, you can kind of become. Yeah. I think somebody said that it's the best thing happening to music is the internet, and the worst thing happening to music is the internet.
Is the internet.
Yeah, which is a very good point. Yeah. But I do think that I mean I went to study music, like very briefly. I did drop out of my university music thing because I made a decision early on. But like the teaching you how to use social media, not how to, and that's just I don't know. I was like, no, I'm not into this. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing about social media that musicians feel, that one reason why they feel a slave to it, is that if you want to try and get a gig at some place, or you want to upload your stuff to some place like, I don't know, the BBC, and you want to sell yourself, one of the questions they ask you is how many followers have you got on social media? Now, if you're not active on social media, you're not going to have that many followers compared to somebody who is.
I've got a few like people on there that follow a couple of gigs, I suppose. It's just like if I haven't got anything to put on, I don't.
So you haven't found it a disadvantage so far, for example.
Well, I suppose I mean you mentioned like the BBC thing. I noticed like the BBC introducing it's kind of like links to social media. I feel like going on there and. I may as well say it. Why not? I feel like going on there sometimes and just in that box where it says tell us. Just no. I'm just gonna put no. Listen to the song, you know, judge it by this, like, but I should have said that really.
I honestly don't think that they do judge a song on its merits because there's so much for them to listen to. I think first of all they've got
to narrow it down, haven't they?
They use number of followers as a screening mechanism, and so if there isn't, for example, a minimum of 1,000 or whatever,
I've got 1,000 on there. I've got 1,000 on.
Well, I've just plucked that figure out thin air.
Yeah. But might have gone down. People might be sick of that, or maybe because I don't post things, they don't see me, so they're just silently there. And if I posted too much, they would think unfollow. Maybe I'm a genius.
It's something they don't. It's something they won't own up to. But the fact is, they are now gatekeep people. I'd say they. I'm trying to define who they are. The people who will book gigs or put you onto some kind of radio or internet station or whatever. They are the gatekeepers now to modern music, and if they're the ones who are just looking at social media followers as their first screening tool, then that's going to be a big obstacle.
That's
somebody
true.
who doesn't engage with that platform.
But I do think that there's nothing quite like sort of meeting people word of mouth, like especially in the local scene, like be it around Northumberland or like in Newcastle with like some of the promoters. I think you email back and forwards with people and stuff, but there's nothing like meeting people, and it is unfortunately it is who you know it is, and the more you do it, you meet more people. I'll see a lot of people record like 20 seconds of a song, and it's like, this is an idea I'm working on, and I'm sat there thinking, well, go work on it. Like, go finish this. No one wants to hear 20 seconds of it, but maybe people do. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think perhaps you're talking as a musician there, and for a non-musician who's a fan of some artist, then they would want to hear, oh, this is 20 seconds of my next song.
I know what you mean, and I've heard like snippets of modern people that like, and when they put it on albums, I've gone, oh wow, okay, I remember that from this show that you did. It was like, that's the intro music or whatever. But like, if I'd heard like Bob Dylan go, I'm working on this idea, and he goes like, where have you been, my blue-eyed son? Where have you been, my darling young one? And goes, what do you think, guys? After I just think, no, Bob. But then you wouldn't have Hard Rain's Gonna Fall. Not that anybody's Bob Dylan. I just saw the film recently, so
what did
he's
you
on my
think?
mind. Oh, that's brilliant. As a huge Dylan fan, I was thinking, like, is this going to be for me? But I thought Timothy Chalamet, I absolutely nailed him. The Johnny Cash portrayal in it. Have you seen it?
No, I've seen it in a couple of weeks.
Right. Sorry, I was going to... Well, not spoiler, but watch out for Johnny Cash. Very cool. The best... the same director made the Johnny Cash film. Which obviously is a main
good
character.
in itself, I thought.
Yeah, but when Cash is the main character, it's a little bit more deep.
Yeah.
The Cash in this is the more sort of like rock and roll, like Hellraiser Johnny Cash, you know?
Yeah.
It's just like, that's what I imagine Johnny Cash would have been like. Actually, I go to a songwriter night on down at a place in Newcastle called Blues Underground, and it's a Monday night. My friend Johnny runs it. This year's sort of spin on it is every month's going to have like a different like theme to it. So January did Dylan month. You do your set of your songs, and then you can do a Dylan song. I was in the element.
So recording, you mentioned that you have some songs that you've been recording.
We've got 2 that are out already. I've been working with Lyndon, his Lime Tree Studios, and we've been doing stuff for the last like year or so. It is more of a like collaborative effort. My name on it, because I write the songs and I can go play them on my own as well. But it's like, we do have drums on some of them. So we started that like last summer. We've got 2 out. One of them, Transfer Market, is like that full band sound. That's probably closer to what the rest of the songs are going to sound like. And it's got like harmonies and nice things, you know. I'm not shying away this time from like the pretty sound there, but it comes down to what the song is. And then the other one's just me playing acoustic guitar and singing it like actually totally live. It's called Wasting My Time, which is probably like what that sound is like. If you see me play on my own, it's probably closest to what that would be, you know. And I think of the recording process, I prefer that, doing it live. Like me and Lauren went the other day doing a couple, just like me and her like singing a harmony on one, and then I was playing and singing and she was playing keys, and we did it like totally live without any click or anything, and it's like it's easier to do that way. Yeah, as long as you don't mess it up.
And you are a man for a recording studio rather than doing it yourself on your computer.
Well, I say studio. It's like my friend's home setup. He's running it as a studio. It's a big enough space. You can, we've had drums in there and stuff. It is like you're going to work. You know, you've got like time to. We've got like 4 hours, 6 hours a day, and it's like you've got to get it done.
Yeah. There's
a certain like clarity with that. You know, I think if I had my own home setup, I would never finish anything, because I would always be thinking, oh, there's more to this, you know. So you just got to get it done.
Yeah. Well, they say a song's never finished.
No, even if it's out, you can always change. Like, I mean, I saw Bob Dylan and he's still changing lyrics to songs that he released in like the 60s.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. The song's never done. Like Cohen's Hallelujah, he would change the lyrics on every like tour. I mean, people change the lyrics to songs all the time, I suppose, but like, change the key and things and the arrangements. There's a recorded version of them that I think of, but then the song's never done, is it? Yeah.
And what plans have you got for the album when you're finished?
Just get it finished first, and then it's going to be something this year. I think there's another song potentially on the way soon. One of Pro will probably do do a big gig or something locally, maybe in Hexham. I just want to have something there that's available, because going back to the social media thing, maybe I've had a bit of an insecurity with some of the older stuff I've done. I don't know if I've gone on and taken things off, perhaps, but like I want to have something there that I can stand by, you know.
I understand what you say, but I mean, you shouldn't have any worries in that respect.
No, you're just being nice.
Pretty good. No,
what I mean is with the recording, I want it to be like, I'd like to think that they're done, you know. Probably. Well, I think the 2 we've put out are okay.
Yeah, it's a mistake to go back to it in some ways, isn't it? It's like
you've got to
it's
leave
like
it.
if you write something and then you see it 6 months later, you just think, I just wish I'd changed that or I hadn't said that. Or,
I wouldn't listen to it intentionally. It's like,
so you don't listen to your own music.
if it's like, if I've released it and put it, obviously you've got to listen to it to get it finished. But then
After that, you don't listen to it again.
no, I'm sick of it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sick of it by then. We're in the
But you're
studio.
playing it as a
I'll hear it when I play it.
Uh-huh.
But it's like we were in the studio this week and it was like, in Tuesday, Wednesday, quite not long days. And I was thinking, if I ever hear these songs again, it'll be too soon. Yeah.
That's a recording business, though, isn't it? I mean, you just got to go over and over stuff until it's perfect, because you can't have mistakes on the recording.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, how are people going to find out about this album when it's out? Not via social media, presumably.
No, they will. I'll be getting stuff on there. A lot on Instagram and Facebook. I maybe use less than I should over the last year or two. But I haven't anything to promote per se. I'll post gigs I'm doing, etc. But once the event's like expired, I think it comes off. So that's maybe why it looks so bare. But they'll know about it. I'll be posting like there's no tomorrow.
Uh-huh. So that's the plan for 2025. Get the album out.
Definitely, yeah. Whether it's an album or like a long EP, I'm not sure whether it's like could be 2 EPs. The songs are in my head are going into like 2 categories slightly.
I also noticed you haven't got much up on Spotify or Apple Music.
Just them 2 songs, yeah.
And so are you going to upload it or?
That's another sort of point of contention. I've been talking to people about that, whether to do. I've seen people put like half, like if it was, say it was an album, whether to put half of it up and then have like physical copies made, or like a Bandcamp thing where if you want the full thing you've got to pay. Yeah. Because music does need to be monetized.
You want to pay for your recording.
Because you're trying to make money and you're writing songs in 2020.
Money.
Exactly, yeah. You want to, you've got to make it slightly worth your while, I suppose. I genuinely feel like if I like go see a gig and I pay to see it, I'm more invested than if something's put onto me, you know. I've made an effort to go and see it. I feel that way as well, maybe about like. But I want to get some local artist or something to do a logo or something for the cover, and then make some merch out of that, like a T-shirt with that, maybe not me name on, because I always think it's a bit of a strange phenomenon when the solo performers have T-shirts just with it being your name. I just think that's they probably put the T-shirt on and drive around in the car listening to their own songs. It's a fine line. If it was a band, I'd have no problem, but maybe a hat or something.
A hat with Sam Shields on the top.
I don't know. That's probably worse.
Or just maybe Sam.
Maybe. Like, I don't want to rush the process of it, because it's like because there's a lot of songs, you know, like I want to hear them all done and then sort of take it from there with what I'm going to do. I don't have any pre-planned ideas. How the songs are best packaged is what we'll do.
Well, we'll look forward to that.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me on the 3 times there. Nature started singing in a barroom tonight. You could hear the drunkards whispering as she stepped into the light. There were rings upon her fingers, a tattoo on her breast, and she opened up the treasure that was hidden in her chest. Ooh. Said, let's get out of this saloon. There's a shrine to the Messiah on the wall up in her room. But all that I was thinking as she flew me up to the moon is I'm hoping I don't stay too long, or likewise leave too soon. Started whistling through
I'm retreating up the river, from the east back to the west. Would you forgive me for pretending I was unlike all the rest? I've just grown tired of the city and the folks who make the noise. Your transparent ladies and translucent boys. You're living among the shadows, it gets hard to see the light. Mother Nature started singing in a bar room tonight.
Thanks for listening to the 3 Times Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe and tell your friends about it.